Today we are dealing with mudita. Mudita is our topic for today. And as you may have noticed, it is handled, there are some similarities as far as the explanation of metta and karuna is concerned with Visuddhimagga, but here the mudita is being handled in a completely different way, and it is very interesting. And you will find the roots of this handling, you will find in the Abhidharmakosa. According to Abhidharmakosa, the mudita is specially practiced, this great mudita is specially practiced in the first and second dhyana. It does not exist in the upper dhyanas, only in the first and second dhyanas. And you may know, according to Visuddhimagga, of course, the base for mudita practice, you have to go to the third dhyana. That is a real mudita jhana. So this approach is very different in the Southern Buddhism and Northern Buddhism. Also, you have noticed that the metta meditation starts in fourth dhyana, but there are some good reasons for that we have explained. So now let us come to mudita. Actually, here it is translated as practice of sympathetic joy. I would prefer just joy in this case. Now, we have explained the opposite of mudita, according to Visuddhimagga, is arati. Arati means simply state of non-joy. Rati and modana, they are synonyms. So, not having a joy, state of not having a joy, is also understood, arati, as boredom. In Indian tradition, arati is not only not having a joy, but it also implies boredom. So when you're not in a joyful mood, you are kind of bored. It is very interesting psychologically. Now the enemy, the near enemy, which is easy to see of mudita, is arati, according to Visuddhimagga. But the far enemy, which is difficult to discover, is what we may call euphoria, the excessive joy. Now, me being a new student of Chinese medicine, euphoria is harmful for the heart, but moderate joy is a great source of health, according to Chinese Buddhism. To keep the heart in healthy state, and heart is the king of all the other organs, you should stay in a moderate joy. This is the optimal state for good health. Moderate joy. So here, what is amazing, it starts with as to the practice of joy, no sympathetic joy, we just cross it out. The practitioner is aware of the true characteristics of all phenomena. Amazing. So it connects us. We know that Kumarajiva is the translator of the Pragya Paramita, great Pragya Paramita Sutra of 25,000 verses, and also he is the translator of the commentary, Tajatalun, the Pragya Paramita Shastra, which is a great source for understanding Chinese Buddhism. And it has been translated also into French and English by Lamotte. And it is one of the most widely read books in Chinese Buddhism as far as meditation is concerned. So this Tajit Alun is very important for understanding Chinese Buddhism and why it is it is different from other traditions. I think the Kumarajiva, he has given his heart into that text, and indeed it has influenced deeply the following generations of yogis in China. So we, being students of the bodhisattva path, we all know that the true characteristics of phenomena is, of course, suchness. And the suchness is another name for the non-dualistic concept of emptiness. There is no Buddhism without the concept of emptiness, but here, when we speak of suchness, we speak of non-dualistic emptiness. And non-dualistic emptiness is, of course, based on the Pragya Paramita philosophy. It is inseparable from Pragya Paramita philosophy. We have to keep in mind that the Pragya Paramita sutras were taught to the Arahats. Also, the Sadharma Pundarika was taught mainly to the Arahats. So it is very important. The Arahats, they are privileged in understanding of Pragya Paramita. For them, it is easy to understand. For non-Arahats, it is difficult to understand, because we have a natural tendency to clinging. This natural tendency to clinging is our nature. But contemplating on the true characteristics of the phenomena, we can reduce this tendency to clinging by contemplating the process of becoming a Buddha from the end. In the Theravada, as you know, we only contemplate the process of becoming a Buddha from the beginning. There is no contemplation from the end. No contemplation of the final state, which is, of course, sameness. Sameness is free from defilements, and sameness is free from karma, because the karma is produced by holding to Vedana, holding to sensations. We are subjected to karma because we are holding to our sensations. Now, if we become a Buddha, we don't grasp for our sensations anymore. So this is the freedom of the Arahat. We will see it is not by accident that after the Brahma Viharas comes the meditation on the pure. The meditation on the pure is also the meditation as far as the Bodhisattva path is concerned on the ultimate state. Ultimate state, no matter whether we are the disciples or we are the Bodhisattva, it's the purity. We practice Dharma to attain purity. This is the aim of any true religion. So here we start learning joy, not like in Visuddhimagga by contemplating a neutral person who is neither in joyful mood nor in that is joy. So in Visuddhimagga we contemplate a joyful person. We contemplate a person who has all the good things that we wish to have. This is a beginning of mudita meditation according to Visuddhimagga. So by rejoicing at his virtue, we are reducing the outcome of non-joy, which is jealousy. Jealousy and miserliness, they are the result of non-joy. We can only be jealous and miserly when we have no joy. That is why the dana, the first parami, when completed, we attain the at least the pramudita stage, the stage of great joy, because we are not keeping anything to ourselves. We have understood the true characteristics of all the phenomena, that directly. So we have attained the great joy, and nobody can reduce this great joy because it is based on direct experience. So this direct experience of tathata, of suchness, just like a direct experience of nirvana when we practice the path of the disciple, will make such a deep impression in the mind that you cannot forget it. You are bound for ultimate liberation, be it the liberation of the disciples or being the liberation of the bodhisattvas. The same principle. When you have direct experience, you cannot forget it. Same, when you practice the jhanas, what is the great advantage of the jhanas? You cannot forget them. You may make a downfall, you may get involved in all kinds of troubles, but this impression of the jhana, direct experience, remains. And when you remember it, it will come back. Because these jhanas, or the direct experience of object of liberation, is a very powerful karma on a positive side. Just like killing one's parents or a liberated person is a great karma on the negative side, which you cannot forget. So we start here practicing joy by contemplating the true nature of the phenomena. And when we have realized it, then we have, so to say, realized the first stage of the bodhisattva. Most of the bodhisattvas, they are not enlightened bodhisattvas. There are very few enlightened bodhisattvas, actually almost none, because this realization of the non-dual emptiness is much more difficult than the realization of the dualistic nirvana, turning away from the suffering of samsara. In this direct experience of non-dualistic nature of all phenomena, then you are, so to say, not separated from the true nature of things and true nature of mind as it is. According to the Pragya Paramita, the true nature of the mind is actually clarity, is purity. It is even written in the sutras of the disciples that the defilements, they are, so to say, guests in the mind. They are not the true nature of the mind. So you want to rejoice you rejoice by contemplating the true nature of the mind, and you get eventually all the benefits. Even so, you have not realized this true nature yet. But it will program you for the realization of this true nature. And you will see it is connected. Kumarajiva is also the, so to say, the patriarch of the Amitabha cult, of the Pure Land tradition. Among others, he has so many contributions that it is difficult to count. So he connects also, as we shall see, the practice of joy with the contemplation of the Buddha and of the Dharma, actually of the ultimate Dharma, which is not in contradiction with the conventional Dharma, that means the wisdom of the Tripitaka, and of course also of the Sangha. But here meaning of the Sangha may be enlarged, including all the bodhisattva, the lay and the monk and nun bodhisattvas. So we get a very interesting picture. So we link the practice of the Brahmaviharas with the contemplation of the ultimate reality. We encountered that already little bit in the practice of metta, but here it comes to the foreground. According to Lankavatara Sutra, which is the base for the Zen tradition, also directly related to Kumarajiva in a way, because the Zhi and great masters of the meditation in China, they also referred to his commentary of the Pragya Paramita Sutra. It was the base for study. Even so, Zen does not recognize the words as the proof of reality, as opposed to other traditions. It nevertheless refers very often to Kumarajiva's commentary to the Pragya Paramita as the source for understanding Zen. So Lankavatara Sutra says that there is no place for defilements in the ultimate reality, in the highest reality, in the Paramartha. The defilements only belong to the conventional reality. And the fastest way to realize the highest reality is what? Is actually rejoicing at the highest reality. Rejoicing at the ability of the mind to see things without grasping any object. Actually, the Pragya Paramita Sutras, like Sukranta Vikramin Sutra, very popular in Tibetan Buddhism, says that if a bodhisattva sees any object whatsoever, that is nothing but ignorance. So it is may sound a little bit exaggerated, but it means seeing any object as real, as something existent without a relation to the whole. All objects can have reality only in relation to the whole. And the whole, as we know, this is a beginning of understanding the Pragya Paramita, the whole is anabhilapya, is unexpressible, is aprapya, it cannot be attained. If you think you have attained the whole, you have only attained the concept of the whole. But the whole is whole because it is unexpressible, it is ungraspable. So this is very important. So with this perspective, the same Tajatulun, the Pragya Paramita Shastra, also teaches that if we understand that, the Upakleshas, which is another name for kleshas, they can give rise to the kushala, quite different approach. The bodhisattva is not afraid of experiencing the defilements because they allow him in a way the better understanding of the whole. And by understanding the whole, we penetrate the real kusala. We students of the bodhisattva path all usually study, at least in China, the Diamond Sutra, Vajrachedika Sutra. It teaches just that. The real merit is the merit in regard to the whole, in regard to the highest reality. The person cannot have real merit because in Buddhism, person is not real. So how can a person have a merit? This is a very important question. The person cannot have a merit. All merit belongs to the highest reality. And by rejoicing the highest reality, we are, so to say, communicating with the highest reality. Rejoicing in the highest reality is communicating with the highest reality. Because the highest reality we cannot grasp, so we communicate with it by having faith in it and rejoicing in it. So this is why, according to the Mahayana Sutras, the relative reality cannot have dzishin, cannot have the svabhava, cannot have real own characteristics. The own characteristics belong only to the parinishpana, only to the highest reality. In the conventional reality and even the five aggregates, even the so-called objects of wisdom, they are also conventional reality. Whatever can be grasped, this is the beginning of the Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra, the base for study of Yogacara. Whatever can be grasped can only be a samvrti, can only be the conventional reality. It can never become the absolute reality. It can never become the highest reality. So in the sutras of the Agamas, also you will find, like Vatupama Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, you will find the explanation that the Brahma Viharas can only be practiced when the upaklesas have been removed completely from the mind. Unless the upaklesas have been removed from the mind, you cannot practice real Brahma Viharas, because you don't see the whole. You only see persons which are not the whole reality, which are only the subjective reality, the conventional reality. So the conventional reality is the reality of where it is impossible to get any security. So text explains he sees beings who suffer having happiness, and he sees beings who are happy having suffering. In this manner, all dharmas do not have any fixed characteristics. They arise following the power of the mind. So this is very important. You will find, even so you may find it strange, you will find a similar reasoning in Theravada itself. All these ideas, they are not strange to Theravada, they are only tackled from a different angle. And so this is the great creativity of Buddhism, that we can, even so we have the same source, we can tackle it from very different perspectives. As I have mentioned, since as a Buddhist we have to accept that everything we experience is a process, nothing can be out of a process. So you can study the process from the beginning, and you can study the process from the mind, because it has no real beginning. And if you take the bodhisattva understanding, then it cannot have also any real end, because the ultimate reality is precisely the reality of the process in which the whole is involved, and the whole you cannot grasp. When you grasp it, it is the conventional reality. But this non-grasping precisely is the own characteristic in the highest sense. This is what the Bodhisattva path emphasizes. And this is very important, especially if we want to understand the Chinese tradition. The Chinese tradition of Buddhism, precisely based on the Pragya Paramita Sutras, precisely emphasizes this aspect. So, in other words, according to the path of the sutras explaining the path of the bodhisattvas, like in the Ghana Vyuha Sutra, also very important for Zen tradition, it is said that by seeing tathata, all samskaras, all the formations are understood. But if you understand the whole formations, it is not necessarily implied that the tathata is understood. So this is why the path of the bodhisattva, rather than emphasizing the emptiness of the person, emphasizes the emptiness of the phenomena. And here we see rejoicing at the emptiness of the phenomena is the path for attaining the ultimate in a more speedy way. More speedy way is the, of course, still the three uncountable uncountable kalpas, the three uncountable kalpas nobody can measure. Because even one kalpa lasts time that we would need to destroy a block of granite of 1 yojana, 1 square yojana, by just brushing it with silk cloth once in 100 years. So we are coming into the timeless dimension, but timeless dimension has time. This is the wonder. Timeless has time, but we cannot measure it by our restricted understanding. Impossible. We need some different kind of understanding to measure time in the measureless. And precisely at the rejoicing at this measureless, we are approaching this measureless dimension. Any religion, any true religion, has to work with this measureless dimension. This measureless dimension precisely is what gives meaning to the measures. So, according to the Pragya Paramita Sutras, it is the transcendental wisdom. It is a wisdom of the ungraspable which gives the meaning to any path. Be it the path of the disciples, or be it the, not to speak about the path of the bodhisattvas. Without the path of transcendental wisdom, there is no path. And there cannot be any Buddha without penetrating the transcendental wisdom. There cannot be any enlightened person, no matter what he believes, without penetrating the transcendental wisdom. So this is very important. So then the Kumarajiva explains that since when you rejoice, as we have seen, practicing metta is contemplating potential of happiness in all beings. When you rejoice at happiness of all the being, or the potential of happiness in all the beings, according to this text, karuna is contemplating the suffering of all the beings. But as we see, the people who we contemplate as happy, they become miserable. People we contemplate as miserable, they become happy again. So there is no real, nothing has really fixed characteristic. So I have mentioned, even in the Theravada Abhidharma, you have the idea that our happiness and our misery is really not matter so much of the object, but it is matter of the mind. According to Theravada, how we relate to the object depends on our abhujita and on the object, on its usada. Usada means intensity, and abhujita means how we turn to the object, from the Sanskrit root bhuj, which means to bend actually. So how we experience any object, be it a person or be it a non-person, depends how, on one hand, on the intensity of the elements. We will talk about it later when we speak about the meditation on arupa, namely on the space. So there is fire in the eyes, and there is water in the fire, because in Buddhism you cannot separate the four elements. They always come together. Only intensity is different. Usada. So we experience ice as ice because of the usada of the water element in its gross form, which is in its fire element in its cold form. But the impression can be changed by the abhujita, and this is why the yogis can change the sensation. This is also described in the Theravada Suttas, can change the sensation according to their wish. They can contemplate the impure as a pure, they can contemplate the pure as a impure, they can contemplate the hot as being cold and cold as being hot. I have seen, by the way, some document about the Kumbh Mela, about a yogi sleeping on fire and not getting burnt. These are the things happening even today, which are part of the mastery of the yoga, which was quite common in the times of Buddha, but we are more and more distant from these times. So the great realization is rejoicing according to one's choice and according to the circumstances. The same is explained in the Visuddhimagga. In the section connected with metta, it is explained the good practitioner is like a good mother. And the child is his own mind. Now, when the child is born, the good mother will take care of it, will rejoice when it is growing and when it is healthy, will be worried and have compassion when it gets sick, will rejoice when it becomes independent, and when it is independent, she will not be attached and let it go. Let it do according when it can take care of itself. Let it be, and when it needs then she is always there when it does not need. She never interferes, provided he is going the right way, being independent. So this is a good mother. Similarly, a good meditator trains his mind in this way. When it is proper to be happy, he is happy. When it is proper to have compassion, he has compassion. When it is proper to rejoice, he rejoices. And he always detaches, because detachment is the key to a healthy mind. It is described in all Buddhist tradition, and it is a key for understanding all Buddhist tradition. And this emphasis makes it different from other tradition. The upeksha is, we will come to it next week, upeksha is the enlightenment. With upeksha being ripened, the one becomes arahat, one becomes a Buddha. That means one can rejoice but not be attached to rejoicing. One can be happy but not be not indulge in happiness, not indulge in too much pity, not indulge in too much joy. All these are like in medicine, they are harmful. Happiness is good, but too much is harmful. Compassion is good, pity is good, but too much is harmful. The rejoicing is good, but too much is harmful. But there is the upeksha is connected with prashrabdhi, with clarity and clarity and relaxation, with pliancy. And this clarity and relaxation can never be enough. Just like mindfulness and awareness is, we can have too much effort, it will be harmful. We may have too much concentration, it will be harmful. We may have too much faith, it will also be harmful. But there cannot be too much mindfulness, impossible. Similarly, we may have metta, but if we cling to it and have excessive happiness, it will not benefit us. If we have excessive pity, it will not benefit us. If we have excessive joy, it will not benefit us. But the compassion will be good on, but the equanimity will be good on all occasions, because it is the equanimity into the will formations. We act because of will, and when we act because of will without grasping, we have pliability and we have relaxation. So the one can rejoice at one's wish, one can use metta, one can use karuna, one can use joy at one's wish, but one will not be led into defilements. This is the wisdom. And this wisdom is connected precisely to the contemplation of the real characteristics of the phenomena. That's why the real joy is from understanding the true characteristics of the phenomena. So this is wonderful approach, which is based perfectly also on the what you may call the original teachings of the Buddha, but it interprets them in a very free way and very creative way. What makes a religion great is its creativity. So next comes, he rejoice at his own practice, because he's supposed to have attained some kind of dhyana or some kind of realization. So he can rejoice like a trader possessing a few merchandise who sells them with hundreds and thousands times more profit. It directly links us to like Vajrachedika, the Daimon Sutra, which explains that the real merit belongs to the Dharma, not to the person. So that's why next comes the contemplation on the benefits of Dharma as being the results of Buddha's grace. This takes us to, again, link to the, on one hand, to the Amitabha Buddha cult, of which the Kumarajiva is a patriarch, the Pure Land, and also of the traditional way of rejoicing, the contemplation of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, Anusati, the contemplation of the virtues of the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, which is also the specially praised in all Buddhist traditions. So how does one contemplate on the Buddha's grace? The Buddha has undoubtedly attained the path and explained it to others. And he contemplates in his mind the bodies of the Buddhas in 10 directions with golden color, adorned with all primary and secondary characteristics. Here we are, Kumarajiva takes us to the Pure Land again. So now in this text, those who are being taught are the Shravakas, are the disciples, like in the Pragya Paramita. But he is introducing very gently, not forcefully, he is very gently introducing the ideas of the bodhisattva path to impress on them the good sides of contemplating the transcendental wisdom. There is no bodhisattva path without the transcendental wisdom. The bodhisattva path is precisely the contemplation of the transcendental wisdom. So this also takes us to the deeper understanding. All this has connection with what has been happening in India, in all Indian traditions, also in Hinduism, in Jainism. The emphasis was turning in this period to bhakti, the grace of Buddha, the grace of God. This is indeed the period of Kumarajiva, is the approximately the period of Mahabharata, of Ramayana. And you will find in his commentary, in the commentary to the Pragya Paramita Sutras, even references to these works. So the Buddhas are in all directions and stay in their pure lands because the principle of Buddhahood is the Dharmakaya. And Dharmakaya is a synonym of the true characteristics of all the phenomena. It is the Bhuta Koti. It is the ultimate reality. There is no other. And why it is the ultimate reality? Because the mind in the ultimate reality is the mind of samatha, the mind of sameness. But in the conventional reality, the mind cannot be the mind of sameness. As long as you grasp any object as real, the sameness is not clear. But when no object is grasped as real, the sameness appears very clearly in the mind. That's why Nagarjuna explains that the true practitioner of the Buddhist path first practices the Jenshin, the true mind, then practices the Pingtenshin, the Samatachita, the equal mind. This equal mind is apramana, illimitable. And we have seen, like this before, I have explained that in the Mahayana scriptures like Nirvana Sutra, the object of the Brahma Viharas for a bodhisattva is real. But for a Shravaka, it is not real. It is the person. Person is never real. But the object of the true metta, true karuna is real. It is the ultimate reality. It is these qualities, they belong not to a person, they belong to the ultimate reality. This is the emphasis of the sutras like Vajrachedika, like Pragya Paramita sutras. All the Mahayana philosophy as it developed, all the tantras later, they are based on that. So all the qualities also, they don't belong to person, they are also results of the Buddha's grace. So result is, as Nagarjuna says, first, if you want to practice the true path, the path of transcendental wisdom, first you give rise to the true mind, Jenshin, then you give rise to the Pingtenshin, to the Samatachita, the equal mind, seeing the whole. Seeing the whole means not grasping. We are grasping because we don't see the whole. When one understands this, then the path, according to Nagarjuna, becomes much faster. We may not have exactly the same experience because the results of the bodhisattva paths are sometimes very intriguing and not easy to see and easy to make mistakes because it is more difficult to grasp. But anyway, it is based on the faith. And we have explained before in the Abhidharmakosa itself, Vasubandhu explains faith as prema, as love. So prema in what sense? Of course in sense of bhakti, in the sense of true mind. The true mind is a bhakti mind. So in this sense, expressing the gratitude to the Buddha, expressing the gratitude to the pure land in which he dwells, is also expressing gratitude to Dharma and gratitude to Sangha. So this is what our text explains. You practice the joy by expressing gratitude to the Buddha because he has taught the ultimate characteristic of all the dharmas, and also to the Dharma in its conventional form as the Tripitaka, and also in its ultimate form as the suchness, and to the disciples. Disciples, it says, the order of disciples of the Buddha is supreme among all communities. It is capable of knowing the true characteristics of the Dharma. So what does it mean? You become, in a real sense, the disciple of the Buddha when you understand the true characteristics of the Dharmas and when you rejoice at these true characteristics of the Dharma, when you rejoice at suchness, when you rejoice at the sameness, at the whole, which is ungraspable, which is unspeakable, and which is the only ultimate reality. There is no second. It is capable of knowing, the real Sangha is capable of knowing the true characteristics of the Dharma. According to Pragya Paramita, you cannot become an Arahat unless you have realized the true characteristics of the Dharma. It is impossible. One can only do the possible, cannot do impossible. So by understanding the true characteristics of the Dharma, you become an Arahat. No other way. So you rejoice because, as the text says, I am really part of that order and my true peers can benefit me. That means the real order of the Buddha, just as recently I have translated the Mahayana Shradotpada Shastra, precisely it starts with that. The explanation of the true characteristics being the suchness of all dharmas and rejoicing at the Dharma and the Sangha which has penetrated the true characteristics of the dharmas. If the meditator resolves that all sentient beings should participate in joy, he will actually see them all rejoicing when the power of his concentration succeeds. So the same as we have seen in metta, the same as we have seen in karuna. So you actually, just in metta, it was said, you contemplate the potential of happiness in all beings. In karuna, you contemplate the suffering or the state of suffering of all beings, which is a state of impermanence. This is the ultimate suffering. And in the joy you contemplate the true characteristics of the Dharma, and which all beings share, whether they know it or not. And you actually, same like you see all beings happy or you see all beings suffering according to the need, you see all beings rejoicing because of the power of your concentration. So this is the very unique way to explain the traditional practice of mudita, of rejoicing. And what remains is upekkha, which is of course the practice which purifies the previous three states, metta, karuna and mudita. Without the purity which the equanimity brings into the practice, these practices, as we will learn next week, they can be misleading. But with understanding of upekkha and its benefits, they will never be misleading. So that much for today. Our time has been passed, so let us continue next week, and I hope we can get more and more joy from learning these different approaches into understanding the creativity of the Buddha's teachings. Okay, thank you. Supriya, any questions?
Choksa has some already. She has been typing me.
I apologize. Bhante, so we've used, in the translation, we've used joy to explain piti, and I'm wondering, is it okay for mudita to use rejoicing instead of joy on its own?
Yes, it is the exact translation.
Yeah.
But it does not
rejoicing.
It does not fit for Northern Buddhism, for Abhidharmakosa, and Kumarajiva is based on this tradition, because the Abhidharmakosa explains priti as saumanasyam, and saumanasyam is a pleasant mental sensation. So pleasant mental sensation.
Otherwise, we can just keep the.
It would be perfect.
Yes.
From the Theravada perspective, because in Theravada perspective, the mudita is indeed described as rejoicing. There is a famous simile of a thirsty man in the desert. When he sees oasis far away, he rejoices at this oasis that is like priti. And when he has actually attained the oasis, he dips into the water and drinks to his satisfaction. That is sukha. That is happiness. So rejoicing at the object is piti, but enjoying the object is sukha. But here we have a different picture. We have actually here in the explanation of the Northern Abhidharma, the joy is more fitting. The rejoicing would be most fitting for any Theravada explanation, but for the Northern tradition, joy is better. So you should suggest translators from Theravada to use rejoicing rather than joy, but translators from Northern tradition, it's better to use joy, because joy is a pleasant mental sensation.
Sensation. Right?
But
very good.
According to
Thank you.
Theravada, you can study in like Abhidhamata Sangaha. The priti is not Vedana. Priti belongs to the Sankhara Khanda. It is Sankhara Khanda. It is will formation. So it is rejoicing. But in Northern tradition, it is Vedana. So it is very interesting how the same source gives a different explanation. So it is perfectly correct and necessary to see things from different perspectives, because they all make sense. The joy makes sense, rejoicing makes sense, but one cannot say that only this is true, the other is wrong. This is not a good approach.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Very
Bhante,
good.
it
Thank you,
seems
Bhante.
to me that from this description of joy, mudita, and then the description that we have of piti. But piti is a little coarse also, no? Because as you go ascend the
Piti is explained as audatyam, which is
excitement.
it is connected with excitement. So it is a kind of unstable, but the sukha is very stable.
Doesn't mudita already have some level of equanimity, therefore?
Without equanimity, you cannot practice the Brahma Viharas, because the object is the all beings. So you do the Sima Bheda practice of practicing metta to the person you like, practicing metta to a neutral person, you practice metta to the your enemy, and then to all beings without exception, enlarging the object from small area into the whole universe.
Right.
And this practice is also explained in Dharma Raksha, in his analysis of the path of the stages of the path of practice. He also explains like that. So it is common tradition to North and South. But Kumarajiva, he has a lot of creativity, so he kind of jump over it and meditate on the whole from the very beginning, which is more difficult, but possibly those who listen to his talks were already experienced meditators. So we have to take this in consideration. He teaches according to those who listen. So very likely those who listen to this course were already very experienced yogis, but Shravaka yogis. So just on the pattern of the Pragya Paramita Sutras, he introduced the Pragya Paramita to their practice, which makes it very interesting.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay.
Anyone else would like to ask a question? Bhante, Kevalji is also here.
Yes, Kevalji, I have noticed. Today we talked together. So I asked him to contact you so that he gets a link. Kevalji, yes. How did you enjoy my talk? Okay. We were talking about the old days also in Bir, and about Pushpanjali. You know Pushpanjali, his daughter?
Yes, I have spoken to her. I have not met her.
She has now got a job, so the family is happy about that. Some very good job, no? Okay. So
I think that's it for the questions.
So we will.
Bhante, can I make one request?
No.
Only if it is okay for you.
Yes, we also Chetso made the request. We should do prayer for the those afflicted by this terrible situation in India. Huh?
Yes.
So shall we recite the Karaniya Metta Sutta again? Then
yes, please.
We do the transference of merit and the blessings in Pali.
Okay.
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 Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Karaniyamatta kusallena yantang santang padam abhisamecce. Sako uju che suju che suvacho chasse mudu anatimani. Santu sako che subaro che apakicho che salahukavuti. Santindriyo che nipako che apagabo kulesu ananugindo. Nachakundang samachare kinchi. Yenya vinyu pare upavadeyum sukino va khemino hontu sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta yeke chipana bhutatti tasava thavarava anavasesa dighavaya mahantava majima rasakha anakatulla Dittha vayeva addittha yeche dure vasanti avidure bhuta va sambhave siva sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta naparo param nikumbete na atimanyete katanchinam kamchi vyarosana patidhasanya na anyamanyassa dukham vichaye Mata yatha niyam putta mayusa eka putta manurakhe evampi sababhute sumanasam bhavaye aparimanam metancha sabbalokasmin manasam bhavaye aparimanam udang adoache tiriyanche asambhadam averam asapattam thittam charang Nisinno va sayano va yavatassa vigatamindo etam sattim madittheye brahmam etam viharamidamahu ditincha nupagama silava dasanena sampanno kame suvineyagedham nahi jatu gambhaseyang punaretiti Etena sace vajena hotute jaya mangalam Etena sace vajena nasantu sabu padava Etena sace vajena sabbe roga vupasamentute Etavata cha ammehi sampatam punya sampadam Sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya etavata cha ammehi sampatam punya sampadam sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya etavata cha ammehi sampatam punya sampadam sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya Akasatta chabummattha deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiram rakantu lokasasanam Akasatta chabummattha deva naga mahidika Punyantang anumoditva chiram rakantu desanam akasatta chabummattha deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiram rakantu tumam param devo vasatu kalene sassa sampati hotu cha phito bhavatu loko cha raja bhavatu dhammiko Nakhatta yakabhutanam papagaha nivarana paritassa anubhavene hantu tesam upadave yaddu nimittam avamangalam cha yocha amanapo sakunasa sadyo papagaho adu supinam makantam anuba Akasatta chabummatta deva naga mahidika punyangtam anumoditva chiram rakantu lokasasanam akasatta chabummatta deva naga mahidika punyangtam anumoditva chiram rakantu tumam param. Well, let us finish here.
Thank you.
Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Anumodana.
Anumodana. So also Anumodana, as she has been doing a lot of work.